Darian. Now, I don't know if you went to sportscage.com, saw the picture, but the Riders sign, it says versatile offensive lineman Jameer Ross Johnson. And look at the picture of him. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. Like, that is so big. I said, I got to ask Darian the question. What's the biggest offensive lineman you played in front of, Darian? Who was it?
Oh, wow. I would have to go with a guy. He's from Texas. We used to call him Big Country. His name was Jeb Terry. He went on to have a pretty good career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he was just a massive, massive guy. And when I tell you over 300 pounds with very little body fat, that was kind of my first experience with a guy over 300 pounds. That was just pure muscles. It was just amazing.
How tall? How tall would he have been?
Jeb is 6'6".
Oh, like, does that pose a problem? Yeah. Like throwing those, quick under center, maybe an inside slant or something when a guy's that tall? He'd be like, hey, you got to stay down a little bit longer. What do you say to him?
Yeah, for a guy like me, it is. I mean, for the bigger quarterbacks, of course, they can see over the line. But I'll tell you, at least 60 to 70% of the time, I never saw the receiver. I just was thrown to a spot because, I had to learn early. I was 5'10" coming out of high school. And, when you go to a Division I university, that's going to be your first experience with your 6'5", 6'6" offensive lineman. So I had to learn fast and adjust. So it was pretty a good experience for me.
Speaking on the other side of the ball, Willie Jefferson's made a career of it. He's the best in the CFL. Knockdowns. As a quarterback, is that the biggest piss off as a knockdown as opposed to a drop pass or something else? Because it almost seems like it's like a wasted play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you have an open receiver and you're about to hit him, and then Big Willie jumps up and, excuse my language with Big Willie there. I don't know why that came out like that, but when he jumps up and he bats the ball down, it just takes your breath away, man. Especially when you have an open receiver.
What was there one guy that came off that edge that had your number? Maybe something tricked. Maybe got the hands up late.
I hate giving this guy credit because he talks so much trash, but he's a dear friend of ours in the show. It's Charleston Hughes, man. He just had my number.
I know, and he had he was a menace.
Yeah.
Like he had a decade of dominance.
Has me sweating a little bit, He just knew how to play the game, man. It was crazy.
The one thing about Charleston, besides being a character, is he was so in tune with the game and so smart. Like when we were talking to him, he's like, oh, there's plenty of times I knew what the play was going to be before it was called. And like, he knew what the offense was going to do. And I'm like, he just said, just sometimes you just know. And then you could react to it. Because I remember when he was on his game, like some of those years in Calgary, 7, 8, and 9, he was so good and just so dominant. I love the fact that he ended up playing 2.5-ish years here in Rider Nation, but man, he trust me, if you hated him, so did we when he was playing with the Stamps.
There are 3 guys from my era, and that was John Bowman, Charleston Hughes, and Odell Wills. And just all 3 of those guys, they were students of the game. And when you put smart defenders with you mix it with that athletic ability, that's why you have 3 Hall of Fame guys right there.
Do you think that, when you go back and maybe now you watch younger kids, where's the switch? What is the switch where it clicks that they become so, a student of the game or so mentally, instead of just athletes? Because there can be so many athletes, and it doesn't matter what sport you're talking, but you got to think that game, right? In football, Darian, from what you saw, is there something, how young does it usually happen?
You know what? I wouldn't put an age number on it. The thing I think is very important is if you can have more than one coordinator before you get to a higher level of football, now you can see different schemes. You can, compare the terminology. You can say, okay, well, this is the old, so-and-so that I ran with Coach Cortez back in 2010. You can now start putting these things together. And now when you don't have to go out there and think, you can just play the game. Now you can just let your athletic ability take over. So I think once you can take the thinking aspect out of it, your plays, you know what to do. then you can just be a full-time athlete after that.
Who in the CFL right now has that it factor that they're a student of the game and what they've learned shows up almost every play? Who impresses you like that?
I mean, it's a guy you named. It's Willie Jefferson. I mean, year in and year out, even if his sack numbers are down, he still finds ways to impact the game, whether it's knockdown passes, whether it's just hurries, fumble recoveries. He always seems to just know what's going on and has that knack for just being around the football. So Willie Jefferson, and I'm just glad that I got out of the league before he really hit his prime, because I didn't want to see him at that point in time.
It's Double Talk with Darian Durant for Campbell Safety Consulting. If you don't have a workplace safety program, call Campbell Safety Consulting. Now, it was the Trevor Harris story about how he would like to maybe get into the broadcast booth after football. And, his social media, so many people are like, yeah, there you go. You don't have a quarterback. He wants the broadcast. It's like, mouth breather central out there. But, a guy's thinking ahead. When you were playing, Darian, you were getting near the end of your career. Were you thinking about different things that you'd want to, maybe dabble in, go back into, maybe use some of that schooling? And what were those things?
The main thing I wanted to do was I definitely wanted to be involved with football, but not so much in the coaching aspect. I think, when you get into coaching, now you continue with the long hours and, and it's just not a lot of security in coach, for sure. It's just not a lot of security, right? I mean, I always say this when I go to speaking engagements or things of that nature, is that your quarterback getting hurt away from losing your job as a coach. And so I didn't want to put myself, I've seen that happen time and time again, and I didn't want to put myself in that situation. So I wanted to go into personnel. I wanted to, and I still do. I still want to, whether it's scouting or being in a front office somewhere, working my way up to GM, hopefully one day. That's the goal. I feel like I have an eye for talent and just being around the game and knowing what's going on. So being on the personnel side is definitely something I love to do.
If you're talking about, having the GMI and seeing that the kids nowadays, and we talked about this with the Tennessee, the NIL money, and how it's just it's a real sharp left turn hitting the brick wall in college sports down there or whatever. Do you have to sit down and have an honest conversation with these kids and their parents to see, should you even spend any time with them to know, listen, they're just in it for the money, or this kid actually loves the game of football?
Absolutely. I mean, nowadays it's so hard for coaches to reach these kids and be able to be mentors or father-like figures, because these kids care nothing about building relationships. They all want just the money and, what can you do for me? And so you have to sit down with these parents because the kids are babied. I heard a quote. I think I was listening to a certain podcast, and they said that kids these days aren't used to the tough road. They aren't used to being told no. You mean you grow up, you're the best athlete as a junior, and then you're the best athlete as you get into high school and college. So there's not much trouble you go through or walls or hills you have to climb to reach a certain level. And then when you get told no, when you get that type of coach, or you get to a certain level and you get cut, or you may not be a starter like you used to be, you don't know how to take it. You don't know how to act. So these agents or coaches or whoever's in charge of these kids, they have to be straight up with them. You can't sugarcoat anything, and you have to make sure they know that everything may not work out the way they expect it to.
Yeah, like the adversity piece for kids we're all parents, right? And hey, just like my kids' hockey draft, a little bit of adversity, Dad's not going to help you figure out that Ehlers isn't. But no, it's true. The other thing, Darian, do you see also that agents have changed as well? Like, I almost see it maybe more so when I hear stories in hockey where the kids are coddled by them as well, right? And everybody's got a voice to a coach, where it used to be the coach and the GM, they set the rules. And now you got parents calling it this, and you got agents calling it this. Do you see that as well in football?
Yeah, and it's a big problem. But I think more than that, these are kids, man. These guys are 17, 18, 19 years old. brains not fully developed. They don't understand. They don't know who to trust. And then you're hearing things from your parents, and then you have an agent coming along who's promising the parents that their lives can change as well. And then it all falls on the kid. And so it's just a tough situation, and I hate it for these kids because now there's so much money, at their disposal, and they feel like they can just reach out there and touch it, and then they're just getting bad advice, picking bad situations, not going to the right school, the right fit, the right system. They're just chasing the money, and you just set yourself up for disappointment that way.
One of the things I always wanted to ask your brother, Justin, and maybe you know the answer to this, because it's no secret, a lot of guys, if they do make the NFL, career is about 3 years. Most of them blow through all of their money. A lot of them have entourages. They make bad decisions. They've got a lot of people on the payroll. When your brother played for the Falcons or the Cowboys, are the entourages allowed in the facility or around the team or whatever? Or is like, no, you guys all you 12 guys got to wait out here for your bro because he's got work to do? Like, how do they do that? Because some of these guys are rolling 20 deep these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, most entourages aren't allowed at the practice facility, but that's where you are during the week. You're at the practice facility, and then game day, then you go to the big gigantic stadium where any and everyone is allowed in. The entire entourage is usually after the game. There's a huge room that everyone's friends and family comes in, and it maybe a couple hundred people in there, but depending who you are, there's nothing they can do. If you're a big time player, you can bring in 50 guys if you want. So it's just that at that level, it's all about your production. Does your production meet what your expectations are off the field? And it's kind of sort of like the Russell Wilson deal. They got tired of him, the parking up front at the practice facility, demanding, his own space on road games, secret flights, different things like that. And then when the production slacks off, you don't get those perks anymore. So it just depends on how you're producing on the field.
Did you guys have one of those rooms with the Riders, or is like a bunch of Western pizza and Molson's?
No, I wasn't that big time, man. So no, the Riders were great to everyone's family. They made everyone's family just feel like one. Yeah. So that's what I appreciate about the Riders.
Okay, can we talk NFL draft here?
Let's do it.
I'm not like always super in tune with the draft. I don't know where you land on this, Maz, but where do you think Shedeur Sanders is gonna? Is he gonna be a first rounder?
Oh, yeah, I think he'll be a first rounder for sure. I don't think he'll make it past the top 10. I mean,
really?
Look, if you look at the teams that need a quarterback, you have the Giants, you have the Browns, you have the Saints. And I think that one of those teams, there'll be a fool not to grab him. I mean, there's a lot of hype behind him. Don't get it wrong. But if you just look at the numbers, man, and I was looking at ESPN today, when there's no pressure around him, he's clipping at over 80%. And that's unheard of. So if you can get in a good situation where you can just be a point guard, you have Kellen, and I'm thinking about the New Orleans Saints and Kellen Moore and what he did to help develop Dak Prescott early on. If you can get into a good situation with a good OC and a system where you can just be a facilitator, you're in a good spot.
Is Sanders that like cerebral player that we talked about earlier, that student of the game? Do you see him as that guy?
Yeah, I do. The game just comes natural to him. I mean, it doesn't matter where he goes, what situation he's in. He just seems to produce. Now, a lot of people don't like, the way he is off of the field, and I get that. And a lot of that has to do with the arrogance of his pops.
Entourage guy.
Exactly.
Entourage guy.
You have to watch out for that. But he's an efficient quarterback.
I don't want to back up your point here, but did you know over the weekend that they retired Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's jerseys at the University of Colorado? They've got them up in the state. They played there 2 years, and they both have a losing record, and they retired their jersey.
The most interesting thing that program was in, right?
The most interesting thing about the NFL draft for me is I saw the Pivot podcast on the weekend, Ryan Clark, and they interviewed Lane Kiffin, to me, who's the most entertaining coach in college football. He has had a roller coaster, but his talent always comes back, and he's a smart guy. He's 4 years sober. Now, obviously, life's different now because it was crazy before. Jackson Dart, and he thinks this, will be the steal of the draft, the sleeper. Whoever gets him is going to get themselves a really good quarterback. That lately the hype in the past couple weeks has been building and building. Wasn't necessarily on the top tier radar like a Cam Ward, but he thinks Jackson Dart's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
And I agree. I think that whenever you can have production in the SEC and you're not your Georgias, your Alabamas, your top tier teams, and you can have the type of production that he's had, then you're a good player. I mean, if you look at a couple of his receivers, I'm not sure their names right now, but they've always been in the top 5 of receiving Americans for the past couple of years. So he definitely has the best deep ball in the draft. If he can get into a good situation, and like I always say, whenever you're picking late draft, that's what you hope for a quarterback, because you know you're going to a pretty good team. You know this is probably a playoff team if you can get after 15, 16. A playoff team, solid foundation, just missing a couple pieces. And if you happen to get picked by one of those teams that need a quarterback, then you're going to be in a good situation. So I think for him, it's going to be a blessing going later in the draft, because he'll go to a team with a solid foundation.
I've heard, and it wasn't a pod, but I was actually reading that in the mock drafts that Travis Hunter, who got his jersey retired by Colorado, picked 2 to the Browns, and the Browns are talking like they're going to use them at both positions. How hard is that going to be, Darian? And do you think that is going to happen?
First of all, it's unheard of, especially full time. Now, I do think that he'll, be sporadic. I think what's best for him would be a receiver. Honestly, I think you're going to take less hits. He's not a big guy. And, when you have to come up and tackle these guys like a Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, these big backs, it can take its toll on your body. So I think for him, it'll be best for him to, focus on receiver, get into a situation where you can learn a playbook, but then you go help out the defensive side of the ball. Let your athletic abilities take over. They already have a number 1 corner in Cleveland and Denzel Ward. So there won't be a lot of pressure for him to come in and be a lockdown guy. So he can have some guys, to learn from, but I think he should focus on receiver, and that'll definitely help his body, because there's no way you can come up and tackle these guys at the running back position.
All right, go back to your Rider Nation days. Who would have been a better wide receiver DB combo? Would it have been Weston Dressler or Chris Getzlaff, who could not only catch, but then lay the lumber when they needed to on the defensive side of the ball? You can only pick one. There's no friends here.
Nah, Getz is going to hate me for this, but there's no way I think Getz can backpedal at all. He's not coordinated enough to backpedal. So I would have to go with Dress on that. Dress is a lot smoother. A little bit better athlete, and Getz knows I love him, but he just seeing Getty backpedal is just unheard of for me.
Hey, I've seen him on skates. He can pivot, on the blades pretty well, but that's a good one.
As long as he's going forward, he's good.
Yeah. All right, Darren. Thanks a lot. Good one today. Let's see how that draft shakes down, and then we can recap again next Monday before the CFL draft.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.